Powerful shops in the world. Anything you want to do with esotericism, you can find it in here. I have a tendency to come in here and just find exactly what I want at exactly the right time. So it's a beautiful shop and it's a beautiful opportunity. I think it's probably good for me to start by telling you I'll talk a little bit about what I've learned and what I'm learning. I know that I made a big mistake today. I lost my temper today. I haven't lost my temper for, I don't know, what time is it now? I haven't lost my temper for a long time, and it came out today like a torrent, like a rage. And if you had saw me, you'd have said this guy couldn't have written 40 books about finding a peaceful path. This guy couldn't be doing films about love and about cleaning. This isn't the same guy. You would have mistaken me for some maniac because I'd lost my temper. So it's important that you know that I'm on the path, that I'm learning myself, and that I'm creating some beautiful things. My life is very beautiful. I love being me, I love what I do, but I'm working all the time from a place of imperfection and having moments of perfection. Moments when I feel that absolute, when I feel God, when I feel, I'm in it. I've said before, I've been doing mentoring and then sat in Leicester Square and I'm looking at the sun, and I'm very wary about this story because my wife says don't tell the sun story because people won't get it, but I figured you'll get it because you're in the right shop. I look at the sun and it's not the sun. It's not the sun, it's something else. It's something at the very edge of my consciousness. It's a being and it's feeding me and I feel it. And I feel this overpowering feeling of love. And I feel that a lot. And when I write, this is an expression of love. This is me just channeling something. It's beautiful. And I understand it at a certain level, but then I'll pick it up and read it again, then I'll understand it at a different level. And then I'll see the sun, and the sun isn't the sun, and then I don't understand anything, other than the fact that I feel this completeness, this absolute, and that's what I'm aiming for. But today I had a bad moment on the train, and it hasn't happened for a long time, and I upset my wife, and I apologise. She gave me one of those looks, those looks you get. So that rage, normally, I've got this essence and this energy, and I channel and I I create great things from it. But if the conduit is weak and there's a break in the integrity, it can spill, and if it spills, people get damaged. So you have to be careful of that. When I had a broken conduit, in the 80s, people got ravaged. I battered lots of people. I was a nightclub doorman, I was violent, I was insecure, and I literally kicked the teeth out of people's heads. I was a very beautiful, fractured, volatile man. My wife loved me, but I was dangerous to be around. I didn't trust myself, so of course I projected that out into the world. And I realised I was creating that reality from a very damaged perception because I was abused when I was young. But I've spent the rest of my life cleaning that. I'm clean, as they say in Ho'oponopono, I'm cleaning. I'm cleaning all the time. And most of the time I'm able to use my voice and the vibration of my voice and the pitch of my voice and the alignment of my voice. I'm able to use that to heal, even across the world, to create light and to create healing and to create inspiration. But if there's a break in my integrity and I have a bad day, especially if I've got a platform, it's very easy to damage people. It's very easy to damage me. If I damage anybody, it has to be processed in me, it damages me. So I'm aware of that all the time. And I think the reason I had a bad day today was because yesterday I fell into judgment, and it just creeps up on you. I was watching the football and I'm watching this footballer bite this other footballer, and I'm just thinking it's just outrageous, and I fell into a place of judgment without even thinking about it. I fell into his story, I fell into his his fiction, and I just thought, oh, that's just, you've got to throw the book at this guy. And then today I had exactly the same. I didn't bite anybody, obviously I couldn't get close enough to the guy, but I lost my temper, and that's the same. It's exactly the same. Words can create, words can destroy. Sound creates. When we speak, we're not really using words, we're using sound, and we're using sound to create. Money is we create money, and we create material things with sound, with the alignment of sound, with the sound of a vow. That's how we create the material world. That's how I'm able to live such a prosperous life. God is in sound. So all the things here, all the material things, all come from sound. They all come from exactly the same place. But sound can be used to destroy as well, even inadvertently, often, especially inadvertently. So there's a huge responsibility to make sure that when we make sounds, they come from an aligned place, that the intention is right, that they come from a place of love. I'm not talking about an emotion, I'm talking about this wall of love, this massive wall of love that devours and dissolves everything below it. It's really inspiring to recognise that you can heal people in Australia by Skype just with the alignment of your voice, just with that alignment. But equally, if you fall out of alignment, you can damage. You can create a palatial reality with the alignment of your voice, with sound, if you put it from an aligned place. But you can also destroy realities. We can create health and destroy health. We can create wealth and destroy wealth. We can create material things, material realities, businesses, and we can destroy them. We can do the same with relationships. I've made myself very ill with the sound of my own internal monologue because I hadn't got control of it. Ill to the point where it showed on x-rays. Ill to the point where it was, it showed up in blood tests. Ill to the point where I'm on my knees because I'm listening to a negative shadow talking away in the background, an old script, and the vibration of that makes me ill. I've created beautiful relationships with aligned thinking and aligned talking, and I've destroyed the same relationships when that has fallen out of alignment and I've been jealous or angry. So we can create and destroy with it. Same as money. I've created material things with my talking, with my sound. And I've also destroyed material things. I've destroyed businesses. I've destroyed friendships. I've literally destroyed people with the movement of my energy. It's so inspiring to know that you are the creator of your reality. And I'm not talking about in some, sickly sweet, new age way. I'm talking about being muscular. I'm talking about taking responsibility for your sound and creating with your sound, creating beautiful things with your sound, healing people with your sound. And then you combine your sound with your touch. If you look at someone like Rinpoche, the way he combined sound and touch, just beautiful healing man. Just when you watch him just moving his hands, the vibrations coming through him. It's just alignment. We can all align. That's what Christ talks about. It's in you, it's in everybody. It's about Christ consciousness or Krishna consciousness or Buddha consciousness or, Allah consciousness. Wherever you're coming from, it's about consciousness and it's ours. But there's a responsibility with that. That's why I say it's got to be muscular. If we haven't got control of the sensual body, and if we haven't got control of the software, the mind-body, if we think with the mind and we think with the body, and we think with the ego, which changes hats 20 times a day, we're just going to be creating some good stuff, some bad stuff, some indifferent. So we've got to, this comes from Gurdjieff and Ouspensky and Madame de Salzman, this idea of getting control of the conduit. It makes sense. We don't want a leaky conduit. We don't want to try and create realities from an ego because it's not going to satiate me. It's going to be transient. I need any product I create to be attached to love, to purpose, to logos, God, whatever you want to call it. Logos is a good name. Frankl uses logos. We align to purpose, we align to God, we align to the Torah, we align to the Word. When we do that, I'm not just saying we create our reality. What I'm saying is we create our reality. We do. I know for definite, I'm absolutely unequivocally sure. When I was working from a very damaged perception, very damaged cognition, this beautiful infinite light came through a dark prism. I created pubs, nightclubs. I got all my war paint. I built myself up a body. I got rid of all the prettiness and I went out. I created nightclubs and pubs and hundreds of violent situations, hundreds of fights, thousands of violent situations. 4 of my friends were murdered. I created that with damaged cognition because I believed the world was dangerous. I was told the world was dangerous implicitly by a guy that I trusted, by a guy that I idolised, who sexually abused me. So on my cognition was this damage. Don't trust the world. Don't even trust the people you love, especially the people you love. Don't trust anybody. And God, forget about God, because he doesn't exist. Because where was he when this guy had his hands on you? He wasn't there, was he? So this very damaged cognition. So you go out and you create a reality based on that. Isn't it exciting? This idea that I created this huge reality. If you've read Watch My Back, you'll have read the reality I created. And listen, let me tell you why I know I created it, why I'm sure I created it. Because it clicked. One day it clicked. And I thought, I said to my wife, everywhere I go, there's violence. Everywhere I go, isn't Coventry a violent city? And she said, there's a common denominator, Geoff. It's everywhere you go. It's me. I'm taking this shit with me wherever I go. I could end up in Australia and be in a fight. I was at weddings and funerals and in fights. Wherever I went there was a fight, because that was my perception. Not a big brave man, an insecure man working from damaged perception and creating a reality. And listen to this, when I realised it, I got rid of all the violent books, because all I read about was violence, all I talked about was violence. All I taught was violence, all I thought about was violence. My training was violent. Became this amazing martial artist based on insecurity. My whole world was based on that. So I surrendered to violence and I became violence. Then I thought, well, that must work the opposite way. If I surrender to love, if I surrender to potential, if I surrender to God, then God must surrender to me. And then 20 years later, I'm reading the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, the birth of Krishna, and he says, I have no choice. He goes, but I've got no choice. If my servant surrenders to me, I must serve him endlessly. Surrender to, we become. So at that point of surrender, we become God, or we become absolute at that point, and then we create our reality from that. So I got rid of all the violent books and the violent conversation, and I started to write about all of the things that blackmailed me, all of the insecurities, all of the dark scripts. I wrote about them. I brought them to light. All the things that blackmailed me. You know, those voices that say, if people knew this about you, if people knew that about you, if people could see what you were like when the lights were off. So I started to write about those things in plays and books and films and say, I'm going to bring it to light and let's see what happens to it. And it just turned to light. It became light, and I became lighter and cleaner. So I was just continually cleaning. Then I started to fill my house with spiritual books, motivational books. My conversations were based around that. My friends were based around that. When I'm in London, I spend a lot of time in here. I spend thousands and thousands a year on studying. I'm an autodidact. I study. I'm interested in maximising my perception so that I can create any reality I want. I've learned from doing it both ways that it's a fiction anyway, but it's our fiction. Is it a fiction we like? Is it a fiction that we enjoy? Is it a fiction that serves people? If it isn't, well, let's change it. But to change that, we've got to change ourselves. And to change ourselves, we've got to stop believing everything we're hearing and stop taking the subjective news which says the sky's falling in and the world's full of terrorists and your only chance is the lottery. You know, we've got to start, instead of looking at subjective information and layering our belief in that reality, we start looking for information in different places. We start looking at these are, I mean, in this room here, and this room and downstairs, some of the greatest philosophical, spiritual thinkers of our species, not even of our generation, of our species, are in here waiting to talk to you. And this place is always invisible to me. I made it visible because I was curious and I was searching. So we have to learn to change the perception. If the light's already perfect, which it is, and it's infinite, but it needs a conduit to come through, it needs a strong film to come through, or a perception to come through, or a prism, whatever you want to call it. Our job is to clean that and to maximise it. Yudhisthira in the Mahabharata said, he called it expanding the second self. So we have to challenge our old beliefs, challenge our old perceptions, and then change them. Castaneda says perception creates reality, or Doorman said perception creates reality, but perception can be changed. But not easy. Perception is like an identity. It's like it believes it's you, so when you try to change it, it thinks you're trying to kill it. But what we have to do is we have to meet it when it rises up, as Gurdjieff says. We have to observe it but don't engage it. We have to observe it but don't identify with it. We have to observe it but don't feed it. And then it disappears back down again. And then we can create and expand our perception. So I call it maximising perception, so we can take the most light possible and create the kind of reality that's going to serve people. But serving them, again, when we start to talk about service, it's very easy for it to sound very corny and very weak. At the top end of service, when we work from love, the service is the reward, because it's bliss, because we dissolve separation. Separation disappears when we work from love, and the bliss, the connection, is the reward itself. And then everything else is exponential. You know, all the material stuff, that's all fun. There's nothing wrong with that. There isn't anything that isn't God. There isn't anything that doesn't come from that place. Everything comes from that place, so we can enjoy that, as long as we realise it's, you know, it's just a part of the fiction. So then we start thinking, okay, if it's about service, it's about selfless service. I want to get rid of anything that isn't love in my life. I want to dissolve and challenge anything that isn't love. And I'm just going to concentrate on delivering and growing and encouraging everything that is love. This is the message of Milarepa, but it's something I found myself. But when you read Milarepa, who was a murderer turned saint, that's why I really like him, because he's this guy that's come from this very dark place and found enlightenment in one lifetime. Get rid of anything that isn't love. I was talking to someone the other day, and he was struggling, and he's a Muslim guy, and I said to him, who do you wake up with in the morning? He said, my wife. I said, you don't wake up with your wife in the morning, you wake up with the Prophet. Who do you sit next to at work? He said, I sit next to a guy called John. I said, you don't sit next to John at work, you sit next to the Prophet. Are you treating him like the Prophet? Are you treating your wife like the Prophet? Are you treating your children like the Prophet? Are you treating the least of you as you would treat the Prophet? Because the way you treat the least of you is the way you treat yourself. It's the way you would treat the Prophet. So we've got to start, I've got to start looking and thinking, everybody that's in my company is in my care. They're not under my employ, they're not under my instruction, they're in my care. Am I caring for them? Am I caring for them equally? Am I working from love? Am I working from that place of love? If I'm not, then I'll start working on changing that and cleaning that. So it's just cleaning all the time. It's a very exciting time to be around, to be alive, because this information is available, it's there. But if you get the really good information, at the entry level you'll get something like The Secret, which is a great book, but it's an entry level book. It's saying this is what's possible, but that will lead you right back to Hermes Trismegistus 6,000 years ago, who says you can create your reality, but to do that you have to have control of this conduit. You're the reality maker, so you have to have control of the machinery, which means you have to know who you are. And how do you find out who you are? By going through who you're not. Find out who you're not. You're not jealousy, you're not anger, you're not rage, you're not violence, you're not greedy, you're none of these vices. That's not who you are. You start looking at who you are. Anything to do with love is who you are. So all of those things we can stop feeding them. In esotericism they call it feeding the bear. When these vices rise up, we observe them but we don't engage them. We observe them but we don't identify. We observe them but we don't feed the bear. If we feed the bear gets strong, then it goes back down and leaves us with the mess. So the key is to be able to watch it rise up and not feed it. Then the bear feeds us, then we expand, then we become spiritually muscular. Because if this stuff doesn't work with your finances, and it doesn't work with your relationships, and it doesn't work with your health, what use is it? It's of no use at all. But of course it does work with all those things. And I know I've got the proof. I've got the proof. I see people in prisons creating drastic realities with perception, purely with perception. And I see people, you know, creating huge businesses, philanthropic businesses, from using the same material but reversed. I see people at both ends. I see people, I'll go into prison, I have to go through 12 doors to get to the centre of the prison, an impregnable prison. I get in. I can get in and out because I've got a key. I understand magic. I've got a BAFTA. And they say, Geoff Thompson's going to come and talk to the prisoners. Who is he? Well, he's won a BAFTA. Bring him in. All those doors open up. Win a BAFTA, I'm thinking, what have I got this for? It's a piece of metal. What have I got this for? I wanted to prove it was possible, that I could create my own reality, but what's this for? Can't be just that. Can't be just that this piece of metal that I put on my shelf. Can't be just about ego. And then I get asked to go to these places, and that's what gets me in. It takes me through 12 doors. It takes me out of 12 doors. And I'm talking to people that are beautiful people. I was talking to 40 murderers recently. Beautiful people. Someone's sons, someone's brothers, someone's fathers, someone's uncle. And they've created that reality through damaged cognition. Nearly all of them were damaged when they were young. And I'm trying to say to them, you can change this. You can change your perception. At the moment, you think you're in a prison, but you're in a full-time university. You could study 50, 60 hours a week if you wanted to. I'll start your library, I'll send you some books. It's powerful, isn't it? Really powerful. Then you might go to Mayfair and you're working with a guy that's worth half a billion, and I'm mentoring him, but he's got 3 mistresses and a cocaine addiction. He's in the same prison as those kids, exactly the same prison. He just can't see the bars. So my job is to show him the bars and say, here's the bars. You know, you've fallen out of alignment. All the money in the world won't get you out of that prison. So this is about looking at who you're not and tracing who you're not back to who you are. When you find out who you are, you feed who you are, you expand who you are, you nurture who you are, and then you become this centripetal force that draws all the right elements together, all of the right things. If you get a chance to, I know they were talking about the Mind, Body, Spirit book, but those books are that magazine's amazing. It's an amazing magazine. The amount of books that I've got from there that have come to me just at the right time. And most of the time the books just underline what you're finding anyway. And I talk to these guys are experts. These guys, they've surrendered their life to this. And I'll often talk to them and say, what's this guy like? What do you think about this guy? What, you know, this guy here, what do you think about that? And they'll talk to you, and you know, they really, really know their stuff. I love this shop. I tell everyone about this shop because it's a beautiful shop, and some of the best spiritual talkers and people in the world have come through this shop. People like Eckhart Tolle, who's got a very powerful message of, you know, not feeding the bear, about changing perception. So hopefully, if nothing else, this is an introduction to this shop, and you should spend time here because the knowledge is here. But the knowledge will all do, every single book in here will tell you the same thing. They'll lead you back to you. They'll just lead you back to your own source. And whether you do that through Sikhism or Hinduism or Christianity or through Judaism or through you know, any of the different faiths, whichever way they lead you back to your source, they'll lead you back to your source. They'll plug you into the wall. And then it's saying, do the work. Madame de Salzman, she's great. Are you doing the work? Let's not wank off too much about what we know. Are you doing the work? Are you turning up? Are you being kind? You woke up this morning with the prophet. You woke up this morning with Jesus Christ. You woke up with Arjuna this morning. You woke up with Krishna. You know, you woke up with Khadija, the prophet's wife, one of the most powerful women in the world. You woke up with her this morning. Are you treating her like that? Or do you think, oh, that's just my wife, or that's just my cleaner, or that's just my, you know, that's just some guy that's uncomfortable? It's in everybody. Once you start getting that, everybody becomes your teacher. Everybody that you serve becomes your teacher. When I mentor people, I write copious notes afterwards because I'm aware that I'm being taught. I'm sometimes sitting with people and thinking, I don't know who should be paying who here, because I'm learning so much from it. I'm so excited about the amount of teacherless knowledge that I'm getting. Not even book knowledge. Book knowledge will lead you to teacherless knowledge. Book knowledge, Madame de Salzman talks a lot about the books are good for underlining what you've found. So you think, oh, that is true, I have found that. Teacherless knowledge is when you start getting intuitive wisdom. And my wife's really good at that. When I said to her one day, I've got to write a film that talks to millions of people. I've got to get out and be global. And she put a hand on mine and she said, when you spend half an hour on the phone with a stranger, talking him through a depression, that's global. That hits everything, that hits everybody. And I think, oh, I just really felt that. I really felt that. That's teacherless knowledge. And then 10 years later, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita. I've took 2 weeks off work to read it because it's so beautiful. And the 10th canto, one of Krishna's servants comes to him, and Krishna represents consciousness, and he brings him a handful of rice as a gift in a rag. And he's embarrassed about it. He said, it's all I've got. And Krishna says to him, because you brought it and you're delivering it from love, it's enough to feed me and the whole universe. So it's saying when we deliver love, it satiates everybody. So half an hour on the phone, talking to a stranger through depression, is more powerful than a film that hits 10 million people if it's not delivered from love. So what we do needs to be delivered from love, but not just saying it, and not just having a mission statement that is nearly all statement and not much mission, but living it and getting rid of all the parts of us, or converting all the parts of us, or convincing all the parts of us that aren't love to find love. But then not batter yourself when you lose your temper. because people do. I mean, Francis of Assisi couldn't see a bare ankle because he just couldn't, you know, he really struggled with the sexual impulse. So he just used to say, keep me away from women. That's how he did it. And he struggled with his anger when he told God he'd got a fear of lepers, and God said, well, go and find a leper and kiss him on the cracked leper lips. He kicked off. That's what I love about Francis. He was a man. He was a bloke, and he just goes, that he really went into a rage. That's the last time that I'm going to talk to you about my fears. That's the last time. And of course he thinks, no, I've got to follow this. I've got to listen to this. This intuition is true. I've got to follow it. So of course he finds a leper and he kisses the leper. This is one of the miracles of Francis. And he wraps the leper up in a coat and carries him to a refuge. But before he's even made a few steps, this leper's become lighter and lighter. And when he pulls the coat away, the leper's gone. And the message from God was that fear is an illusion. It doesn't exist. It's illusory. But until you intercourse with it, until you come nose to nose with it, until you kiss it on the cracked leper lips, fear will always stand between you and your kingdom. When you read the Bhagavad Gita, open the front of the Bhagavad Gita, it's beautiful. Arjuna in the chariot, Krishna on the back. He's got the bow of Gandhi, he's got the infinite arrows, and he stood in front of tens of thousands of soldiers. And you read the Bhagavad Gita and it talks about it as a war. This is a war. He's going to go and fight these people. There's going to be killings and beheadings. But he's standing in front of this. He sees his father. He sees his father figures in the armies. He sees his uncles. He sees his brothers. He sees his cousins, and he actually loses the will to fight. He wants to run away. He says, I don't want this. I want to be a renunciant. He's so afraid. And Krishna, who represents consciousness talking to the ego, says, this is illusion. This is Maya. Your dharma is to go and face this and go into battle. And of course we see it as a battleground. But then when you read the 10th canto, way, way back, you know, this is the fruits of the Vedas or the fruits of the Puranas, the 10th canto, Krishna calls the battle of Guru, etc., he calls it the sea of nescience, the sea of ignorance. That isn't even a battleground, it's just ignorance, it's just wrong perception. You're not killing people, you're killing perceptions. And he said, if you've got me in your chariot, stepping over that battleground is as easy as stepping over the hoof print of a calf in the mud. And that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is saying, step back, get a wider perspective, stand on a hill, and you'll see that this is just nescience. And what he's saying to Krishna, he's saying, your dharma is to get your kingdom back. That's our dharma. Our dharma is to be free. Your dharma is to get your kingdom back. You are the prince of the world. People are watching. If you run away and you're scared, you're giving them permission to run away and be scared as well. But he's also talking to to Arjuna about the body. He's saying your body's got 100 billion cells, and they're all led by perception. So if you run away and you're scared, you give 100 billion cells, and these are all microcosms of you, you give 100 billion cells permission to be afraid, and then you scatter like dropped marbles. So the message is muscular. The message is very, you know, the religious message is not a weak message, it's a powerful message. It's so powerful that people find reasons not to come to the books. It's a powerful message. It's saying overcome fear. But to overcome fear you have to go intercourse with it. Then you look at the Matrix, the more modern version, and you see Neo fighting the agent who represents fear. And what does he do at the end? He doesn't have to block the bullets anymore. He doesn't have to fight anymore. He just intercourses with the agent, goes into the inside of him, goes nose to nose with him, and he just dissipates. And then he's the one. The message is there in every single thing we do. I went and sat and watched Legoland the other week. I wouldn't recommend it without children. People do stare at you. But it's one of the greatest metaphysical films ever written. It's like a kids' film, but who takes the kids to see it? The adults. We have to sit and watch it. But it's beautiful. It's about how we create our reality. And if we don't like our reality, we can break the bricks down and create a new reality. But we have to have a powerful imagination, and we have to connect to Logos. We have to connect to God or to purpose. It's a really powerful film when you get a chance to watch it. It's hugely metaphysical. It's really, really clever about, you know, developing a powerful imagination, working from a sentinel ego, having control of the mind. 100 billion cells are all moving in the same direction. All the dishes are going in the same direction. We've not got, you know, trying to go in 20 different directions at the same time. So it's about alignment. and it's about recognising that fear is nescience, but it will be real and it will create real things for you until you intercourse with it. You have to turn into it. You have to be the proof yourself, and then when you're the proof yourself, you can go and talk to people anywhere in the world and tell them, and they'll know you've got the proof. You'll be able to show them the proof. How are we doing? We okay? Yeah. So I just want to, I want to just excite you to look at this in a very muscular way, a really muscular way. This is about, if you want to create your own reality, which you already are, everybody already is, it's just whether it's the reality you want. If it's not the reality that you want, and you want a better reality, you want a kinder reality, then we have to start working on the parts of us that are building the wrong reality. We have to align ourselves. Getting rid of sin, they call it, which sin just means where we miss the target. Getting rid of the places where we miss the target. And then, Milarepa talks about it really simply. Stop feeding the stuff that isn't love. Feed the stuff that's love. Keep it really simple. Anything in you that's corrupt, or any demons in you, any divides, the word demon means divide. If we're divided against ourselves, we've got to find that unity again. We've got to live it. It's no good reading these books and then being unkind to people, reading these books and judging people, reading these books and kicking off and being angry and pretending it's somebody else's fault. It's our reality. The responsibility is with us. What I've learned from my own life, and I'm still very much learning, is the world can't be changed. It's a fiction. But we can be changed. But when I've changed myself, I find that the world does change. You know, the world I live in now is not the world I lived in 20 years ago. And I changed it deliberately. Most of the guys I worked with at 20 years ago are still in factories, still working, they're imprisoned in factories by fear, still working in nightclubs and still being violent. Some of them are dead, some of them have lost their sanity. 3 of them are serving life for murder or for drugs. So I watched them create more and more drastic realities, and these are people that are very beautiful people. They're people that I really love. I see God in them, but I've watched them create this reality, but I stopped myself. I underlined it and said I'm going to start creating a better reality, because I don't want my wife to be afraid of me. I don't want my children to be afraid of me. When I stopped being violent and started to practice aligned living, my dad kicked off. I can remember a time when the people in this street were afraid of this family. And it's horrible, isn't it? I don't want no one to be afraid of me. I don't want that. But saying to my dad, that's my battleground, and saying to my brother and saying to my friends, I don't want to do that no more. That's not who I am. And they feel abandoned by you. Like you think you're above them, you don't. I just want to live a better life. I want to live to my maximum. To do that, I've got to maximise perception. I've got to know who I am. When the lights are off and I'm at home on my own, I know who I am. But I also know elements of me that I'm not. One of them rose up today, and I saw him, and I'm onto him, and I love him, and I'm going to align him. There's a lot of power there. There's a lot of rage, and I can make that into something beautiful. I'm an alchemist, so I can make that into something beautiful. Now I've seen it. Sometimes we are put in front of situations that trigger that, so we're able to see it and then own it. Then I had a discussion for about an hour with my wife about whether it's mine or not, and she said, of course it's yours. You can't blame all these other things, it's you. You've created it. And I thought, yeah, you're right, so I can do something with that, so I'm going to make something out of it. Listen, thank you for listening. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them for you.
I'm quite interested what triggered it. I know you said judgment because of the football, but it's quite inspiring that you lose your ranks. So what situation sparked that? What did the guy say?
The situation was a symptom. It wasn't the cause. The situation's wasn't anything. The cause is that I'm changing, that I'm growing. I'm going up to another level. I'm in front of more and more people, more and more discerning people. I'm being given a bigger platform. I've got a lot of films that I'm writing and making about this kind of thing, and I'm working one-to-one with a lot of people. And I'm being given a bigger platform to write about this kind of thing in a mainstream forum, because it's lacking there. I've started writing for the Huffington Post, and my first article is about the Caretaker. It's talking about creating your own reality. So, because I'm going up an octave, the air's thinner. So my ego is struggling. It's squirming. Part of the residue of my old self it still needs to be converted. So that was just showing me that this old egoic script is squirming, and it doesn't like the altitude. But I'm going to move. I'm moving anyway. I will say, well, I'm moving forward. You know, I'm not going to leave anybody behind, but but not all of you are going to choose to come with me. So I mean, I'm where the air's thin.
Anything could have sparked it.
Anything would have sparked it. Luckily, it was just verbal, and I captured it straight away. But it was something that triggered my ego, and my ego wanted to speak. My ego said, I can't breathe. You've taken me to a higher part of the mountain. I can't breathe. So it's got to convert. It's got to dissolve and convert. So each time we go up to another level, each time we give him more responsibility, we have to contract. We have to contract the ego. We have to contract the old scripts, and then we expand our conscious net. But equally, when we expand our conscious net and we get more awareness, our ego, or this false ego, can't live in that. Old scripts can't live in that. Now, you can't have a platform and still have violent impulses. You can't have that because it's too damaging to people. No. Once you get a platform, if you become an author and you have any kind of platform and you're working with people that are vulnerable, you have to be hugely careful. You have to be really careful. You have to make sure that these people in your care are being cared for by you. And to do that, you have to know why you're there. You have to recognise you're there to serve them. But I can't serve a pretty girl if I'm looking at her tits all the time. And I can't serve a millionaire if I'm thinking, what's in this for me? I can't do that. I've got to be there thinking, how can I serve you? Show me how to serve you. So before anything I do, I'll go and have 30 or 40 minutes in a church, a mosque, or a Hindu temple, whatever's local. Today I went into a Christian church, and I prepared for this so that I can bring that to the room. So I don't come with any of my old ego. I just come with the will to serve. So as you expand, these becomes very uncomfortable. It's a bit like going up a mountain. The air becomes thin. People can't breathe. Suffering. We have to consciously labour at these things, and we have to stand in front of all of the things that we're not. All of our insecurities, you have to stand in front of them. That's suffering. So when things rise up, I have to stand in front of that and I have to own it. And if I've got a discerning partner, so she'll say, that's yours. Don't push it on me. Don't push it on him. That's yours. And she'll stay on me until I sit in it and own it. And I sit in that suffering. We have to suffer. I have to, people say, what is suffering? Watching 3 close friends go on the internet and trash my son. That's suffering. That's suffering. That's suffering. But I know that they're trashing my son and trying to destroy my son, but I know my son's put himself there. I know my son's done things that's placed him there. And I know that they're asleep, and I know what they're doing is from a place of being asleep. And I know that I've got to watch these people that I love go through their own karma. I've got to watch them face that. So it's all suffering. But if I act on it and I go and be physical with people, then I'm in the drama. If I'm able to stand back and observe without identity, etc., not prepared to stand in front of the fear, they're not prepared to engage the fear. And I've ran away from it loads of times. There's been loads of times where I've just literally said, I'm not ready. And I go away, and I come back. But even Arjuna spent, I think 10 years in seclusion, training in celestial weapons before he went to the battle, getting himself ready. So the point I'm making is that Muhammad suffered. Muhammad, when he had the revelation on the mountain in Saudi Arabia, wanted to run away. He wanted to kill himself. Arjuna wanted to run away. Christ wanted to run away at the garden. So, even our prophets fell into illusion. Even our prophets, Christ says, take this cup off me. He was so afraid. He fell into the illusion. And then he spoke to God, or he spoke to consciousness, which gave him a wider view. So even our prophets suffered. But we have to, if we've got a purpose for the suffering, if we know why we're suffering, then it's much more manageable. So a good book to read is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, Logotherapy, A Search for Purpose. And he made it work in a death camp. He made this work. He made the Torah work. He made the word work in the darkest place on earth. He made it work. He was able to elevate himself above the deprivation and the murder and the killing, so we could get past that and write a book. Because he said it's really important that I write a book and say to people, this is what happens if we don't manage our perception. We have to expand and maximise our perception. That's what he was talking about. But when he was reading the Torah in Auschwitz, he had a voice, an intuitive voice says to him, we don't want you to read the Torah anymore. We want you to be the Torah. We don't want you to read the word anymore. We want you to be the word. We want you to be proof. And then when he came out of the prison, he travelled the world. He became this amazing speaker. In fact, people like Wayne Dwyer and Deepak Chopra, their claim to fame, they say, is that they stood on the same stage as Viktor Frankl, because he was such a powerful man, because he was able to stand in front of this, the ninth circle of hell, and make this stuff work. If you can't make it work in the world, what's the point of it? There's no point just saying the words. It's got to work. We've got to create with it. We've got to create beautifully with it. That's the journey. Anyone else got any questions?
Which 3 books have had the biggest influence on you?
I've got to say the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a big long, it's about 18 books. It's about 12 volumes. I just love that. I just loved it. And when I read the Quran, someone sent me a beautiful copy from Dubai, and it was like nectar, it was like perfume. I was high when I was reading it. And obviously it was the right time for me to read it. So they really influenced me later, and the Gita is a big influence. But one of the books that really influenced me was a simple book called Watership Down, about a tiny rabbit that, that kind of becomes this leader. A tiny ineffectual rabbit. It's a really powerful story about, finding this giant within us. So that really inspired me at quite a dark time. But yeah, so they're the ones that jump to mind immediately, and they're not easy reads. But Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning as well, was really, really good. I guess the one I'm influenced by most is Gurdjieff. Most of the stuff I've found myself, the closest link I can find to that is Gurdjieff. But Patanjali was great. Yoga Sutras, another one. Books that scare you. When you read Gurdjieff, it scares you, because you read it and it's so true and it's so accurate, and you just think, God, I was on a cruise when I read it. I nearly threw it over. I had this drop of terror went through my body, because I realised how much I'd got to do and what I had to face and all the things I was hiding from. So there's so many, but they all will lead you on to teacherless knowledge. Because if it's not teacherless knowledge, it's just words. It's good to quote them and go to them, but we've got to, when I read the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, it just showed me something I already knew. It talks about the birth of Krishna, and that the guy that was the king at the time, I can't remember his name, but he was threatened by the birth of Krishna, and he believed that he'd had a prophecy that his kingdom was going to be taken off him by the birth of Krishna. So he sent 12 demons to kill him. And each time Krishna killed the demon was liberated, and the effulgence of the demon came over to him. And in reading that, I was able to see that that would be my journey, underline what I already knew, that when consciousness is born, it will be attacked by egoic entities or egoic beliefs or divided thoughts. But if we're able to front them and defeat them, those fears will be liberated, and the energy and effulgence will come over to us, and our consciousness will expand. So that was really powerful for me. It was because it was showing me something I already knew, but it underlined it, and it was obviously in a metaphor, but it really underlined it. And he ended up having to. It was I think it was King Kamsa. He ended up fighting him in a wrestling match, which was appropriate because I was a wrestler. But he represented the ego, sending divided thoughts to kill consciousness when it was born, because the ego is threatened by consciousness. So the birth of consciousness will always be attacked by inside thoughts and by projections. And I've had my biggest moments. I've always had internal attacks and external attacks, quite big. And they stop the moment if I bring a play out and it's a really big thing, it's a really something like Fragile, for instance, the play called Fragile. That was about bringing loads of fears to light, loads of very dark, deep fears to light. And I got massive amounts of problems on the internet and all that kind of stuff before that came out. The day it came out, it stopped. It died, and I expanded. And I just felt this overwhelming, unconditional love. It was an amazing feeling, but that was just me.
Yeah, it's a subtle blend, isn't it? I wondered how you go about it.
Well, the ego tricks you into doing stuff, gets you at weak moments, and then we do stuff, and then the moment we do it, it jumps in and batters us. So it gets two feeds. It has a small snack, then it has a feast. So the key is the technique I use. It's from Gurdjieff, but it's in Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Is that when it rises up, we observe it, but we don't engage it. So when that feeling rises up and says you're terrible and you've done this and you're even worse to me, you write all these books and look at what a hypocrite you are. I'll just say, no, I'm going to talk about this tonight and I'm going to bring it out. This is one of the things I learned from Gandhi. I'm going to bring it out and tell people about it. So I bring it to light, show my faults. So I just don't feed it. When it comes up, I observe it, but I don't engage it. I observe it, but I don't identify. I just recognise it's something being processed, and it came out, not in the best way, but it came out. Now I've seen it, I'm able to process it. So I go through the same period of processing. But I've got a really good partner with my wife. We work together, so we process stuff. We'll bring it into a bundle in the middle, like that. It's like a real energy, and we will do a discourse until it's completely dissolved. And then hopefully we won't see it again. Yeah, so the technique is if you get a chance to read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, that is the technique.
Like if the pain body's rising up.
Pain body rise up, you observe it, but you don't engage it and then identify.
Aftermath, I was thinking where you feel disillusioned, disappointed with yourself. I mean, I'm probably a lot earlier on the path than you are yourself, so you'll have had more slips and recoveries. So therefore, what I'm asking, I guess, is further down the line you get, you become used to the slips and recoveries, I guess, do you? And you
get used to them, but the technique is the same. The whole beating yourself up and feeling terrible is just the ego or the egoic, identity or this old script or pain body, whatever you want to call it. It's just feeding. It rises up. It will feed in any way it can. It will trick you. It will wear different hats. And it will trick you into feeding it. And if you feed it, it grows stronger. And then once you've done something wrong, then it will feed off you again and say you're terrible, you're a hypocrite, and all that kind of stuff. So the best thing to do with it, is to own it very quickly, to apologise where you can, and to bring as much light to it as possible. What Gandhi used to do when he had his slips. And he had slips, even at the top end of his game he had slips that he would consider very large. He had a newsletter and he would write about it on his newsletter. That's often why I confess on my newsletter, because of the technique of Gandhi, which is, I'm going to bring this to light immediately. If I don't bring it to light, it's going to eat me, it's going to feed off me. So we bring it out and say, I made this mistake. So, Gandhi made mistakes, and, all of the people, even Mandela had, even when he was at his spiritual peak, he had a couple of times when he just completely lost it and kicked off, and then recovered it and brought it back. But we can't afford to beat ourselves up about this stuff. We've just got to recover as quickly as possible, otherwise it feeds again and again and again. But we've got to make sure that we don't keep doing the same things. If it rises up and it's exposed itself, the ego is very vulnerable, or the false ego is very vulnerable. And we are able to observe it, and we can actually feed off it then. The consciousness can feed off it just by observing it. But it takes a lot of courage, because we've got to go into it. And the process is gradually breaking down the defence mechanisms so we can see all the ashamed of it or that are dark. I do it through writing. Writing's a really good way of me bleeding it, and using alchemistry to actually make something with it. And also, like I say, when I did my first play, Doorman, I couldn't open my eyes for an hour, watch it on the stage, and then after the play was on, I was ill for about two months. I was ill for about 2 months, just because it was so much shame, so much honesty. So beautiful. I mean, Fragile is even better. Fragile is blisteringly honest.
After the illness came, what, a sense of catharsis, I guess?
Yeah, that was my cleaning. Again, Sharon was amazing. She closed the doors, but I carried on working. People didn't know I was bad. I just was on my knees, because my stuff was very, very bad. I was very violent with a lot of people. I was hugely violent, a lot of times, and to a lot of people. So I had a lot of cleaning to do. So I had a 10-year atonement. And most of it came out through writing, but not just the writing, but writing a play and then watching my children watch the play, and watching my friends and my peers watching the play, and writing about things I'd done and how I was, and owning it. Very difficult to look at, but that's how I've managed to keep expanding And that's how I managed to live the life I'm living now, and it continues to expand and it continues to be challenging. I think we've run out of time, but I really appreciate you all coming tonight. It's really a great crowd, lovely group. Thank you, everybody.